The open world genre is one of the most beloved genres in the Western gaming industry. If open world shooter, role-playing game or adventure game, there is a lot of various interesting worlds we can look at, ranging from the fictional metropolis of the Grand Theft Auto series, to the diverse landscapes in Jak and Daxter, to the endless procedurally generated worlds of Minecraft or Dwarf Fortress. Open worlds can be used in various different ways. In Jak and Daxter, the world guides the player into specific routes and introduces goals you need to complete to progress organically. In GTA games, the open world is used as a sandbox for the player and also as the main element of almost all of the missions you have to complete in the game, while in Minecraft and Dwarf Fortress, the world lies in your hands. There are no goals. You have to create these goals first. The difference between a game like Minecraft and a game like GTA, though, lies in its design. While Minecraft relies on the player's own creativity and ideas, GTA is tightly designed and scripted and requires the player to follow through. This can also be seen in the design of your environments. When it comes to making your world feel believable and inhabited, it becomes more and more difficult to maintain the facade the bigger the game becomes. Many areas have to be made inaccessible. Less interior locations are utilized, and non-player characters will be less detailed. Few games manage to make an open world engaging and seem alive. But I want to showcase one game that features an open world that is criminally underrated. Welcome! Welcome to Paradise, my favorite shithole in gaming. You might be thinking, why Postal 2? Out of all the amazing games that are on disposal, you chose Postal 2, the game where you can relieve yourself on others until they vomit all over the place. Yeah, it is true, Postal 2 is a daring game that doesn't take itself that seriously. It is politically incorrect, offensive and cruel, but that alone doesn't make it fun. Maybe I can explain to you what I mean a bit better when I share my personal history with Postal 2. Many years ago, a game called Portal 2 released, and I wanted to watch Let's Plays of it. So I searched up the game on YouTube, but found something strange. A game called Postal 2. I checked the video out, and to my surprise, it was the most violent video game I have ever seen. The novelty didn't wear off either, so I just had to get this game. After downloading the game from Pirate Bay with the AWP mod and over 500 weapons and most likely virus attached to it, I played the game every single day. Even though the modded game was highly unstable and crashed almost every 20 minutes. What is even more interesting, I never actually played through the entire game as a kid. The first time I finished Postal 2 and Apocalypse Weekend was in the last 2 years, when I realized that I still haven't explored every aspect the game had on offer. Even today, most of the fun relies on walking around town and tormenting the residents of Paradise. I think I also know why. Remember before that I mentioned that open worlds can be restricted and guide the player through their worlds, while others are completely opened up? Well, Postal 2 is as open as it gets. While still retaining a sense of progression throughout the days, the world doesn't really change that much throughout the game. But every day you unlock a different part of the town that was inaccessible before. Similar to what Grand Theft Auto games did to introduce different parts of a city later on in the games. While parts of the map are blocked off on specific days, pretty much everything in a specific location is accessible. When you see a building, you can enter it. This level of openness works especially well in Postal due to the small scale of the world. Sure, the map sizes aren't really impressive, but the fact that you can explore the town from the streets, to the buildings, to individual rooms, and even down to secret areas only the most dedicated of players find surely makes up for the limited map size. The level of detail for such an open world title is rather nice to see. Areas tend to be populated with props and many NPCs, and environmental storytelling also is utilized throughout Paradise. It is mostly rather simple environmental storytelling, but it makes the game ever so slightly more charming. What really makes Paradise shine are its residents. The town is sprawling with a diverse cast of NPCs ranging from Caucasians, Latinos and blacks, homosexuals, different groups of people that pose a threat towards the dude, law enforcement, and even cats and dogs. Many NPCs, of course, are randomly spawned into the scenery and wander around the town's districts without any real routine in mind. But some other NPCs spawn in their homes or workplaces and do walk in and out of their homes. Every NPC reacts to their environment. If bystander or homeowner, they most of the times react realistically and make the game world feel dynamic and responsive. Bystanders will get sick, scared, angry, and even can defend themselves if provoked too much, depending on the actions of the player. If corpses are seen laying on the streets, or even if certain items are laying around in town, every action has a consequence. And that makes Postal 2 feel so much more alive. The game allows a player to follow the storyline of the game and be done with it. But one thing it does better than even GTA is rampaging. It is so easy to get a bit carried away in this game, killing every person in sight, just for fun. That is the reason why I played this game for many years without finishing the game once and having hundreds of hours of fun. I credit the fun you have in rampaging on the game's responsive nature entirely. With every NPC reacting to your actions differently and sometimes even themselves getting into trouble and firefights, the world seems very much real. In many open worlds, the game centers too much around the player. When you are the only person in this world that ever creates chaos, gets persecuted by law enforcement, and initiates gang wars, the world just seems kinda fake. What many of these open world games with this problem have is a giant map to explore. While some games are definitely exceptions and are very detailed despite their size, most of the times smaller but more detailed worlds make games much more memorable and can shape a game's experience through different restrictions and conditions that are put upon the player. In Postal, that restriction might be that every action you perform has an equal counteraction. But for Yakuza, that would mean that you cannot kill or fight any innocent people. Or in Bully, you have to look out for the curfew hours and must not get busted being outside of your allowed area. Nowadays, we are getting blinded by size and arbitrary side quests and collectibles. Giant maps that promise hundreds of hours of gameplay aren't necessarily bad, but a small open world could immerse you much more effectively into the experience through detail, depth, and restriction on the player. Back then, it wasn't conceived as possible to create giant, seamless worlds with a lot of detail. And while that is possible today, most games in the open world category seem to have lost a certain quality to them that earlier games possessed. While giant or smaller maps aren't necessarily better or worse than the other, both can provide satisfaction and long-term enjoyment in their own respective ways. But maybe our obsession with giant game worlds is almost ridiculous. We get a bit too excited when we hear about this new game that is as big as an entire country or even as big as the universe itself, to the point where we forget to question what the trade-off for such a giant world will be. Maybe our worlds are big enough right now as they are, and it couldn't hurt to cut the size down a bit more to include more details and depth. On the other hand, games like Minecraft and Dwarf Fortress, with their giant scope, are also very enjoyable and very much fun to play, even though they lack a story and they lack constructed quests for you, but you have to make up the goals for yourself. I suppose everything does come down to taste in the end. And I rest assured that size truly doesn't matter.